We are live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our planning committee. Since we have met since June, so it's nice to be back. Madam Clerk, can you confirm the roll call has been taken? Through the chair, roll has been taken. Very good. Members of the committee, any conflict of interest to declare? Seeing none. Any separation of items for discussion? Anyone want to separate anything? Seeing none, we will move forward. I'll need a mover and a seconder to place all items for consideration that are not separated on the floor. Moved by Councillor Van Tilburg, seconded by Councillor Sless. Thank you. Any discussion, or I guess not discussion, we'll call the vote. Mayor Davis, just waiting for your vote, please. Are we sharing? The separation of all items for consideration consent carries on a recorded vote of 4-0. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sokoli, Sless, and Van Tilburg. Thank you for that. And we have one statutory public meeting on today's agenda. This meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The purpose of this hearing is to discuss the planning application before us and to hear from the public either in support or against the application. At the end of the public meeting, the committee will pass a recommendation, which is generally considered later in the month at council. The name of anyone who speaks in regards to this item will be noted on the public record. So make sure that when you do come up, and if you do, you state your name and your address. The applicant will speak first. They'll be given 10 minutes. That's inclusive of questions of this committee. Then we will listen to our municipal staff give their version of the presentation. They'll have 10 minutes as well. That's inclusive of questions. At the end of that, the applicant will have 5 minutes to provide clarification, and we will hear from members of the public in between there. As a reminder, the following rules of decorum as set forth in the city's bylaw do apply. No person shall display any sign or banner or plate card in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids. All persons shall use respectful language and not make any rude gestures or disrespectful or offensive language. All person addressing the committee shall speak only to the subject that we are debating before us. All right, so I'll now call upon the applicant to review zoning bylaw amendment PZ 13-21 and the draft plan of subdivision for 88 and 92 Burkett Lane. So if you can come forward, just state your name. As a reminder, 10 minutes, that's inclusive of questions.
Good morning, Edward John, professional planner and partner for Landwise. And we have the presentation up. Fantastic. So good morning, Chair, councillors, members of staff, members of public. I'm here today representing Live Communities for the lands located at 88 to 92 Burkett Lane in Brantford. Today with me is James Warren, who is our senior urban designer, and we're both going to be pleased to present the application and answer any questions that you have. I do wish to begin with thanking staff. Incredible work done on a larger scale approach to this area for development. In particular, both Noel Hermes and Jeff Medeiros, but as well as the engineering staff who've navigated some of the complexities of this and arrived here today. So we do support staff's recommendation and are pleased to bring this development forward. As I assume many here today are aware, this is one of the remaining phases of the larger development that has been coordinated through the landowners group, given the needs identified in the Special Policy Area 2, which really emphasized the requirement for a coordinated approach to stormwater and engineering requirements. The zoning and draft plan today will facilitate the same form of residential development approved for earlier phases and continues the work necessary as outlined in Special Policy Area 2. The subject lands have an area of approximately 5.5 hectares, or for those that prefer acres, 13.7 acres, and are located west of Erie Avenue and south of Burkett Lane. This forms part of a greater community development known as River Walk and the Special Area Policy 2. To the east, the property is adjacent to lands designated for open space and a future stormwater management pond. And to the south and west, the lands are bounded by the Hamilton-Brantford Rail Trail. Erie Avenue is planned as an intensification corridor and is already served by existing transit. Just a quick slide to show the consultant team and the various disciplines that have been involved in delivering the project and applying for the process today. Obviously, we have a number of disciplines here. I won't go into each detail, but we've been working collaboratively with the city and thankfully arrived at today's meeting. Today's agenda, I will be brief, so we'll go through the official plan designation and zoning bylaw. I believe there will be a staff presentation, so I will be light on detail. We will present the draft plan of subdivision, the overall future development proposal involving the 3 blocks. I'll briefly summarize some of the supporting studies and then finalize with an overall development. So in front of you today is the official plan designates the subject lands as residential, where low density residential forms are permitted up to 3 stories in height. The proposed development will contribute to the city's residential intensification targets within the built up area. The zoning bylaw is approved by council in September 2024. The city of Brantford new zoning bylaw rezoned the subject lands as residential medium density RMR, which permits a range of residential uses, including back-to-back townhouses and block townhouse dwellings. Our application before you today is intended to gently refine a number of those provisions to suit the built form through clarification of how the zoning is applied for street and back-to-back townhouse dwellings in a future common element condominium. The proposed draft plan of subdivision consists of 4 blocks. To the north, 1 block is dedicated to the Burkett Lane road widening. The remaining 3 blocks, measuring 1.7 hectares, 1.6, and 2.0 hectares, are proposed for the future development of 3 condominium townhouse communities. The slide before you shows the overall layout of the proposal. It is proposed to include 267 condominium townhouse units. This would consist of 181 standard townhouses and 86 back-to-back townhouses, all accessed from private roads connecting to Burkett Lane. The townhouses will have frontage on the aforementioned private roads and are 3 stories in height. Parking will be provided in the excess of the city's new bylaw requirement, comprising of 634 parking spaces, which would include 100 visitor parking spaces. Of these visitor parking spaces, 12 will be accessible. Each standard townhouse unit will have a minimum of 15 square meters of private amenity space. There is approximately 1,100 square meters of common amenity area, and this is distributed over the 3 locations, one within each condominium block, providing that amenity, particularly for the back-to-back townhouses. Additionally, each condominium block will have a connection to the Dyke Trail, which is shown towards the southern end of the blocks. I'll briefly go through each block. So block 1, this includes 89 condominium townhouse units, 59 of those standard and 30 back-to-back, all accessed from Burkett Lane. They will provide 202 parking spaces, including 2 spaces per unit and 24 parking spaces. Block 2 includes a total of 85 condo townhouse units. This would consist of 57 standard townhouses and 28 back-to-back. And once again, a total of 194 parking spaces will be provided, including 2 spaces per unit and 24 visitor parking spaces. And then finally, block 3 includes a total of 93 condominium townhouse units, 65 standard and 28 back-to-back. A total of 238 parking spaces will be provided. And once again, 2 spaces per unit and 52 visitor parking spaces will be provided. I'll quickly run you through the elevations similar to previous phases. You'll see the townhouse dwellings here. These are the street townhouse elevations with garage and front porch walk-ups. And this is the elevation illustrating a typical back-to-back townhouse in terms of the materiality proposed and the entrances in between each garage entrance. Briefly going over the supporting studies. So in support of the application, this list identifies those that were submitted. There have been a number of amendments to those through the process, but we're glad to be here today with support from staff. The report demonstrates that servicing is provided to be in place to appropriately support the development. This includes future stormwater management pond proposed at the east of the property near the Burkett and Erie intersection. In conclusion, 88 to 92 Burkett Lane proposal contributes to the density and housing goals of the municipality, provides a compact and efficient design, supports complete community objectives, and most importantly, ensures floodplain management through the coordinated adherence to special policy Area 2 guidelines and represents good planning. Overall, we're in support of staff's recommendation to approve the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision. We also concur that the proposed development is consistent with provincial policies, the official plan, and will provide more housing options for residents. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Committee, we have a few minutes for questions. Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yeah, when the parking spaces are, when you're calculating parking spaces, are you calculating with a garage unit? Is that how we get that number?
Through the chair to the councillor. So we are approving tandem parking. So there will be a parking space in the garage, and we are also counting the parking in the driveway in front of the garage.
As tandem.
As tandem.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll now move on to a staff presentation, but don't go too far. You know the drill. We might need you to come back. So I'll now welcome, I believe it's Jeff Medeiros, who's going to provide the presentation to us from a staff perspective. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Jeff Medeiros, Manager, Development Planning with the City of Brantford. I'm here before everyone today to present the staff recommendation report, two Planning Act applications, the zoning bylaw amendment, and a draft plan of subdivision. And it's to facilitate the development of street townhouse and back-to-back townhouse dwelling units. I'm going to go through the next few slides a little bit quickly. Properties on Burkett Lane, it's right adjacent to the dike. And as the applicant has indicated, they've applied for a draft plan of subdivision, proposing them to subdivide the property into 4 different blocks, 3 for residential and then a road winding block. And the applicant went through the development proposal in detail, so I'll keep continuing along. So into the fun stuff, the policy stuff. So looking at the city's official plan, this is very much an area that's already designated for residential. So a spot that was envisioned for housing, if you will. The use that's proposed is permitted, and it is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the city's OP. So on the zoning side of things, we have a new bylaw in Brantford, as committee is probably aware. It was adopted last year in 2024. So the property through that process was rezoned to 2 site-specific, one being an RMR zone and the other one being actually a high-density residential zone, which would permit townhouses. Through the subject zoning amendment, they're proposing to consolidate everything under one zone and specific to an RMR zone, which is intended for townhouses. The next few slides are intended to give a visualization of how the zoning is structured, and it's established this way as a result of some of the changes in the new bylaw. So the built form, street townhouse dwellings, as well as the back-to-backs. There's specific regulations that are provisions that are identified in the staff report. So if you think of the blocks as a whole, the front yard would be Burkett Lane. So there's setbacks that are identified in the zoning that would speak to that. A minimum lot area per unit. There are some specific provisions that identify amenity space, whether it's private for the street towns or those centralized common amenity spaces that are proposed in the 3 separate blocks. There's specific parking provisions that are identified in the staff report. They relate to establishing a visitor parking requirement, the 2 spaces per unit, the tandem parking that the agent spoke to, and eliminating the electrical parking requirements. So the next few slides now zero in, if you will, on more of the per unit zoning regulations that are established in the zoning bylaw. So they deal with things such as your lot width or your lot frontage. The bylaw differentiates between an end versus an interior unit. Similarly, the next few provisions, the bylaw speaks to different sort of setbacks or yards to the private streets. That's hence why the red box. And the bylaw goes as far as differentiating those different yards if you're an interior unit versus if you're an end unit. And those are identified in the staff report. And similarly, there's the back-to-back product that's on the screen. There are site-specific zoning provisions that are identified in the staff report. They speak to, similarly to the street towns, your front yard, your landscape open space, your exterior side yards, and then your garage width. And the language for those particular provisions are also spoken to in the staff report. And similar to the street towns, they differentiate between if you're an interior versus if you're in an end unit, and then establishing the provisions from the private street. And that's how the zoning is proposed and recommended in the staff report. A few things to consider with this application. There is a holding provision that's recommended by staff. This is consistent with the other applications that have come before committee over the last year and a bit in Special Policy Area 2. And similarly, as you can see in the staff report in Appendix F, there's a fairly comprehensive list of subdivision conditions, 90 in total. They deal with a whole slew of different requirements. This area is going to be developed from an engineering perspective and so forth. So those are all identified in the staff report. I'm not going to go through them. They're quite detailed and wordy, but they're there for committee's interest. In conclusion, staff are recommending approval of the subject zoning amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications. It will facilitate some additional housing units in the city. And through the draft plan of subdivision conditions, the city will work, and as well as any external agencies, whether it be the Grand River Conservation Authority or the utility corporations, will work with the applicants to get the subdivision plans registered. I just want to highlight too, there are some other planning processes that are in play here. There's a draft plan of condominium that's still active, and there's a site plan application that's still active. So those processes will still move forward as these applications and as the subdivision gets registered. So in conclusion, staff are recommending approval of the subject applications. Thank you.
And we do have some questions in the queue for you. Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple through you to Jeff. Condition 5 indicates that there's supposed to be a mix of dwelling unit types. What I see before me is 267 townhouses. Is that the type of mix you were looking for?
Through to chair to the councillor, that is the mix that was identified, and that has been the mix that has been proposed to the city since 2021 for these lands.
So that's an acceptable mix, is it?
Through staff's review of the application, yes.
Okay. Is there one condo corporation going to govern this entire development, or will there be several?
Through to the chair, that might be a better question for the applicant. I see that they're showing 3 fingers, so most likely there's going to be several condominium corporations, and that would be reflective of the different blocks that are being created with the condo or through the subdivision. Sorry.
I presume that this area would fall under the Secretariat. Has that been cleared by the Secretariat for development?
Through to the chair, not that I'm aware, but there is a condition on the holding that does speak to the consultation component with the Survivors Secretariat, and that is consistent with the other SPA2 files that have come before committee.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Jeff. Jeff, it's always hard to envision a development from these floor plan sketches. It does look to be a proposal that has a fair degree of density, but then the provincial government is forcing us into that. And our official plan recognizes that as well, and that we have to make better use of land. But can you give me an example of another development in the city that this would be similar to in terms of density and look?
Through the chair to Mayor Davis. The city has approved a number of similar applications, and actually, in fact, Riverwalk 4, which is proposed by the same developer, is very similar in terms of the built form.
Something that's built and existing.
Sure. There's a few other, I would say, townhouse developments across the city. If you drive into City Hall, there's the old Canadian Tire site on Colburn Street. That's in the built-up area. That's 677 Park Road North, which is at the corner of Park Road North and Powerline. That is a development that consists of stacked townhouses and block townhouses. So I would say that would be a very comparable, scale and size and density in terms of the build form.
Okay. And the green spaces in here, there's 3 of them, I think. How large are they?
Through to the chair, I will have to circle back to that one to give you an actual specific number, or I would defer that to the applicant to give you the actual.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a scale of, how large these plots are. And do we have any indication what will be on the green space?
Through to the chair, the applicant is still working through a site plan process. Through that process, there would be a detailed landscape plan approval process that would delineate how that area is going to be programmed. I mean, it is going to be a condominium, so they would be owning and managing it.
Yeah, I'm asking you questions actually that I'm hoping the proponent will answer and
Fair enough.
reply, but I see him over there taking notes. The other question I have is, who's this going to be marketed to? Is it going to be like a family type development? Is it going to be directed more to young singles or seniors? I suspect you can't answer that, Jeff. Hoping the proponent will, or do you know?
I do not.
Yeah, and this butts up against the dike. What's specific provisions have to be incorporated in this development that address that issue, that it's in the floodplain, albeit protected by a dike? Can you?
Just quickly, as we've exceeded the 10 minutes.
Yeah, through the chair, Gary Peaver, Manager of Development Engineering. So being that this is in the floodplain against the dike, the GRCA is very involved with the application and the ultimate construction. Ultimately, with this application, it falls under the SBA 2 land. So no development can actually begin until the SBA 2, so the multiple ponds and storage behind the dike isn't constructed. And that was a city policy that was implemented many years ago, and the landowners are still going through that design work now. So being behind the dike, ultimately there needs to be some sort of storage if the dike is closed due to the high water levels of the Grand River. And that needs to be implemented as part of any building going up. For the dike itself, the GRCA is just making sure there's a safe distance away from the dike construction or the dike lands itself. And then ultimately that would be through the GRCA's review at site plan stage.
Thank you. We've exceeded the 10 minutes. So
A motion to extend for 5 minutes.
we could continue. Okay.
Second.
We'll call the vote on extending for 5 minutes.
The motion to waive the rules carries on a recorded vote of 4-0. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sepoli, Sless, and Van Tilburg.
Mayor Davis, you had the floor. Did you need more time?
No, actually, I finished my questions.
Perfect. So we'll continue with Councillor Van Tilburg.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, garbage pickup, who's responsible and how's it done?
Through to the chair, to the councillor, staff's understanding that it will be private and it will be dealt with through the condominium process.
Is there a location in the diagrams for where that would be?
Through to the councillor, most likely it's going to be curbside pickup. through the site plan process, typically there's a waste management brief that's established. And for the units that don't have the opportunity to do curbside, there would be a centralized location usually.
That's an area that gathers a lot of snow in the winter time. Where's that snow gonna go?
Through to the counselor, typically with developments of this nature, they're usually identified and stored on site. So they would normally identify it on the plan, or they would be removed.
So where's that
tucked
identified on the
away.
plan?
I would defer the specifics behind that to the applicant because the city hasn't approved site plans yet.
And there's minor mention of a traffic study. My question on the traffic study is not this traffic study in isolation, but all the developments along Erie Ave, Burkett Lanes, up to Fifth Ave, that go right up to the apartment buildings. What are we doing with Erie Ave? And are we coalescing all this traffic information into one file so that we can have Erie Ave that will sustain these developments when they're done? Because like I'm hearing in each one, yes, this meets, but I believe Erie Ave is the same size as it was 50, 60 years ago.
Through the chair to you, counselor. So yeah, part of the transportation studies, further into the detailed design, they will be updated to ensure they meet the numbers of units that are actually being proposed. And as through that review and study, we also submit to their design team the other developments and their current transportation requirements as well. So the landowners within SBA 2 themselves are completing a traffic study as one. So all the Riverwalk phases already come together. And then the external developments that are known at the time, we submit their numbers for their review as well to include as background traffic data.
Thank you. And what's the nearest shopping amenities for our what would be our new residents?
Through to the counselor, could you please repeat that?
What would be our nearest amenities? Shopping, groceries, things like that for our new residents there.
Through to the chair, there's none obviously proposed in this subdivision. However, there are some smaller scale retail establishments along Erie Avenue as you go closer to the downtown, and then obviously the downtown is not that far away as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Sluss, you did have your hand up and I had your name down. Did you still have a question?
Yeah, there was just one that actually referred to the traffic. Does this development necessitate a signalized intersection of Burkett Lane and Erie Ave?
Through the chair to you, counselor, that is correct. The details of that signal haven't been finalized and considerations for a roundabout are still being looked at. But at this time, yes, there would be an upgrade required to that intersection. It is a part of the draft conditions of this site as well as any of the other current subdivisions in the area and their approval. So ultimately, whoever starts first will have to implement that intersection upgrade.
And they would be financially responsible for that upgrade?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Whether it be signalized or whether it be a roundabout, either way, they would be responsible?
Through the chair, currently the signalization is their responsibility. As we go through more of the detailed process and looking at the potential for a roundabout, there may be a need to come back to council to look at that, but at this time, we have not gone that far.
Okay, so just to be clear then, Gary, if it is a roundabout, does that financial responsibility then lie with the city to install that?
Through the chair, no, it would still be on the development community to implement. Because it is ultimately Burkett Lane needs to be upgraded and serviced. There are no services. So thinking from a construction standpoint, Burkett Lane needs to be urbanized and bring services down, and that intersection would occur at the same time.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we are now officially out of time again. Did we want to extend or do we just want to ask?
I move
questions?
extend by 5 minutes.
Okay.
And a further 5 minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we don't want to ask questions when it's on the floor. Okay, we'll call the vote.
The motion to waive the rules for an additional 5 minutes carries on a recorded vote of 4-0. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sepoli, Sleth, and Vantilborg.
We reset that timer for another 5 minutes. Mayor Davis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've got a couple of questions, probably will go to Mr. Peavers, because it deals with sanitary, so I'm getting technical here, and the stormwater. I'll start with the stormwater. I don't see a stormwater pond, I see a stormwater block, and plus, managing stormwater in a floodplain right up against dikes, challenging. How's that going to be addressed?
Through the chair to you, Mayor, a part of the Riverwalk area, I'm going to call it. So both on the east of Erie and west of Erie, there are proposed two larger pond areas. That one is currently on lands owned by the city from Riverwalk Phase 1 on the west side of Erie, and then there's another proposed pond on the east side of Erie. Those ponds themselves do two things. They provide that control to the Grand Rivers, but they also provide a flood area for water to go, as this area notes this land already floods today during major events, especially when the dikes are closed. So the outlet past the dike is closed to the Grand River being high. So these ponds will ultimately be a flood area that all these developments will have to drain to. Ultimately, this application in front of you, the site plan itself will need to do its own private controls to also attenuate some of the runoff from their site to slow it down to get to those city-owned ponds. Those details of this site haven't been vetted through the site plan process yet, but they will have to implement some sort of on-site controls that the condominium corporation would be responsible for. So something like underground storage and pipe systems.
Right, and they also probably have to include a pumping station, don't they?
Through the chair for storm, no.
It'll flow by gravity to the city pond?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, and so, but they still have to be able to retain the water. They can't just release it directly by one pipe into the city pond. They've got to have their own kind of holding area, and then it goes to the city pond, right?
Through the chair, the city pond will take a lot of the quantity controls, the flow rate reduction. But based on the detailed design, we haven't got to those details. They are assigning essentially how much each site can release so that the ponds can still function.
But there is the possibility of needing, let's call it a first stage holding area. And I notice on the plan, there is a long piece of land at the back that's titled stormwater block or something.
Through the chair, just speaking to Jeff, that part has removed. That was not required to be on the draft plan itself. But you are correct in your assumption that the site will have to do some sort of attenuation of runoff. Just that number hasn't been fully set yet, as those two ponds have not been fully designed.
Okay, so what do you do if you're doing it underground? That means you can build more on the property. But what happens if they elect to go with a ground-based pond as a sort of holding area? Do you then reduce the number of units to accommodate that?
Through the chair, if the applicant wished to build call it a private pond for that future condo, yes, it would obviously have to reduce the amount of units, because they would take away that area that those units could be. The underground storage would be through usually a pipe system. And I would expect that would be the ultimate solution here, but again, we haven't got to those details just yet.
Yeah, you can actually do it in your roadway, but you create larger cisterns.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. What about the sanitary? I know there's a large sanitary, in Eagle Place, there was 7 or 8 years ago a concern about the sanitary capacity. So is this going to be hooked into, let's call it the traditional sanitary system in Eagle Place? Or is it going to tie into, I think there's a trunk line that passes through that area?
Through the chair, the entire Riverwalk area is actually still being looked at of which direction it's going to go. We're likely going to have a split where some of it will go to the Fifth Ave pumping station that's been fully rebuilt, upgraded, and has capacity availability. While the other piece where we can get it to the trunk, we are going to. I'd have to call into Tyler right there maybe to confirm for particularly this property whether it will make it to the trunk system or will go to the pumping station itself.
And in another case, will it require a pumping station?
Through the chair, no proposed pumping stations for sanitary for the private site.
Uh,
Okay.
Sorry, was that?
Go.
Oh, okay, good. You're good for your answer, Mr. Mayor?
I'd be interested in knowing what you might add to it.
Sure. Tyler Wright, Project Manager of Development. Everything Gary said is generally accurate. The development landowner group is going to remodel the area to Gary's point to see what that split is going to look like to the trunk sewer, sanitary trunk sewer that goes directly to the wastewater treatment plant. What we can get there by gravity, we'll send there to alleviate concerns and save capacity with Fifth Avenue. What we can't send to the trunk directly to the plant, then we'll obviously have to go to Fifth Avenue. That will require upgrades for the trunk system from the development to the pumping station, but the pumping station itself has capacity.
Yeah, so the pumping station Fifth Ave, it's not like next door. It's across Erie Ave and down a couple blocks.
Correct. It's a sizable upgrade. The city has ran some inflow and infiltration reduction programs. That is more to look at the existing system as a whole to see as a city what we can do to alleviate capacity, not just for development, but for the city as well. That program is underway. They're quantifying those results as well. So we're factoring those in as well. But you're correct. It is a sizable upgrade required to get to the front door of the development all the way to the pumping station.
So you're probably looking at upgrade anyways because of the developable lands that are north of this particular area, which I assume a lot of that will hook into going to Fifth Ave.
The SPA 2 lands as a whole, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we're looking at. So Riverwalk Phase 2, 3, 4, Phase 5, that will be coming to committee as well later. 8892, as well as Riverwalk East on the east side of Erie.
So that pipe is going to have likely upgraded because of the increased demand from a number of different properties in this area.
That's our expectation at this time, yes.
So how do you determine
That's
how much
Lori, we have
live pays?
well
That's my last
exceeded.
question.
But any further questions can be directed at
Okay.
staff while we debate the motion later in the agenda once it's on the floor. So we'll now open the floor to members of the public seeking to speak to this item. If there are any members of the public in attendance or meeting virtually, just make sure that you raise your hand. If you are here in chambers, you can come up to the microphone once I address you. All right, so are there any members of the public in the chambers who would wish to speak to this application? Sir, you can, yeah, come on up. So you'll have 10 minutes. That's inclusive of questions. When you have a seat, yeah, you can take your pick of microphones. There's a button there. If you push it when it lights up red, you are live. There you go. So if you just state your name and address, you'll have 10 minutes inclusive of questions.
Yeah, it's Doug Brown, 401 Erie Ave. Just with being in business at that location for 66 years, we've recently just seen more traffic flow on Erie Ave, which is a concern. The intersection is obviously a big concern with daily incidents happening there. So to think that this area can handle more traffic, more people, I'm just opposed to that for what I already see going on. So those are my biggest concerns, and then obviously I've been around long enough to know that in 2008, when the north development on Erie Ave, with the interference we had that whole summer, caused a significant business, interference. To think how that might play out going forward too, that's a concern, because I know that tends to rub the public the wrong way with that type of activity being possible. And yeah, those are my biggest concerns really, because it's just the traffic already. Not that I'm worried about more business, which is always good, but I'm at capacity with how we manage our business now with which is a good thing, but it's overwhelming the business we already have, which is good. So traffic, possibly interference. And I think most other things have been covered for what I listened to this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. You do have a question from some counselors. We'll start with Counselor Van Tilburg.
Thank you. You're on that corner, Erie and Burkett every single day. What have you noticed within traffic over your time frame there? And my other question is, staff are talking about two different solutions to it, be it lights or roundabout. You might want to express what you think of each and how one may affect you more than the other.
Definitely, like I say, the traffic level at that intersection and Erie Ave, Cockshut Road, Erie Ave is significantly increased. It's just, yeah, like to me, it's like doubled. It reminds me of more when there was lots of industry back on in the day on Mohawk Street, that there was a main source to Mohawk Street. And now it just seems like that's all ramped up. And like I see daily at that intersection, a lot of frustration with people can't turn on Erie Ave. There's, I'd say a daily incident that probably doesn't get recorded a day with near collision or collisions daily. So there's definitely a lot of frustration for people commuting through there. And then your other question was about
Roundabout or
yeah.
traffic light.
To say what's the best to do there, I'm sort of lost on that. I would think there would have to be some more property taken, expropriated from me to do a roundabout. So I would guess traffic light might be a little friendlier for me. I just don't have enough property as we speak, and for what already has been built north of me on Erie Ave, a lot of people will use my parking lot to park extra vehicles where that's allowed. I disagree of that, and it's a daily that I come into work and there's people have parked on my parking lot because they don't have enough parking on just north on Erie Ave.
Good. Okay, thank you. Mayor Davis, you had some questions.
Yeah, I think Councilor Van Tilburg asked the questions that I did. So around clearly there's a need for traffic control at that intersection.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think you would support this development not being approved unless that was a condition.
Yeah, I just don't really see the reason of it, and we have to manage some other things before anything could be sort of placed there, I believe, but I'm all for more business, but I'm at capacity.
Fair enough. And a lot of the traffic we have in Erie Ave is happening because as Norfolk grows, Scotland, south part of the county of Brant, we just have more traffic coming into the city, and that's our major southerly entrance into our city. So do you think at some point you might have to consider widening Erie Ave from the traffic you're saying?
I'm surprised it hasn't been done already, really, for what I see daily. It's heavy traffic flow from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. It's
right.
Steady with just everything that goes on for how people could travel through there. It's busy.
Yeah, I live in Echo Place, often use Burkett Lane to access the Cockshut Bridge. You're right, that's a really difficult intersection. So clearly that needs to be addressed. So thanks for coming out and telling us your concerns.
Thank you so much. Are there any other members of the public here in council chambers who would wish to speak to this matter? Madam Clerk, do we have anybody online?
Through the chair, there are no virtual attendees.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one more time. Is there anybody out there that would like to speak to this matter? All right, seeing none, we will now close the public portion of the statutory public hearing. We have opportunity for some clarifying statements from the applicant. So we'll have the applicant come up here, should you choose to, and it looks like you choose. You'll have 5 minutes to address anything that you've heard, either from us or from members of the public.
Thank you, and through the chair, I'll be brief. There were a number of questions regarding waste clearance and snow clearance. I can confirm that will be private through and secured through the condominium agreements and boards on each of those blocks. I heard a question on intended demographic for the subdivisions. So these are a mixture of street townhouses and back-to-backs. The street townhouses will be larger and be approximately 3 bedrooms plus den. So for what I would say now a larger family, bear in mind demographics are always changing. And then the back-to-backs are typically around the 2, some will be 3 bedroom. So those will likely be for those looking to downsize, or dare I say it, starter homes, if that even exists these days, given the current economic climate. Moving on, I think there was obviously some questions on traffic. There are conditions in the draft plan which will require us to further isolate the approach on whether it is a roundabout, signalization. There is traffic calming being explored along Burkett, as well as through that urbanization, the proposal for public on-street parking along Burkett. I think that was approximately. That's right. And then the parkettes on each of those blocks over 350 square meters, ideally to serve the back-to-backs, with each street townhouse having access to their own private rear yards.
Okay, Mayor Davis?
Yeah, can you put the square meters into square feet?
You would ask that. I'm hearing reliably through the chair to Mayor Davis, over 1,200 square feet for each of those pockets.
Okay. And so the target market then includes families.
So through the street townhouses, I think those are ideally suited for smaller families and growing families. The back-to-backs potentially will be explored and interesting to empty nesters, bearing in mind there will be stairs in there. So not seniors, but those looking to downsize, and then those looking to enter the market.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because I think there is a need in the townhouse market to provide for families. Now, given that there'd be families in there, is that green space large enough?
So
Because the kids will be looking for some place to play.
through the chair to the mayor, so those would be the street townhouses, which would have their own private amenity area in the rear yard. They would obviously be able to access the centralized located parkettes, but it would be a combination of the two that would provide more of your secure private yard for the younger children and for those of older age to be able to explore into the parkettes.
Yeah, but if you're gonna be attracting families, they're really interested in having a little park area where they can all gather and the kids can play together, not in their little postage size stamp backyard. I'm not being denigrating that, that's just the constraints you have. Have you considered, and I realize it impacts number of units and profitability, but on the portion that you believe that families will be moving into, so the section of the block that has the more bedrooms, expanding the green areas so that it becomes a little mini parkette for kids.
Through the chair to the mayor, certainly this is, the conceptual. This is a bylaw that would allow up to the maximum of what you were seeing. Through the site plan process, we will be looking to program those centrally located green areas, and certainly it's market driven. So to your point, if it is considered through that process that we can secure all the necessary facilities on those parkette areas, there will be an opportunity to expand where necessary. And, I'll be realistic. There is a market on both sides of this. The density is a push from the province, but it's also a market reality, but there will be a balance. These units need to sell. It is a very difficult market out there. And if they would sell faster with more park, I'm sure that will be entertained to the site plan process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, this will conclude the public meeting portion. We'll now move into the debate and the discussion on this item. So I'll need someone to move, put it, so I have Counselor Van Tilburg putting it on the floor, seconded by Counselor Sless. Thank you very much. So we now have item 4.1 on the floor, which is the zoning bylaw amendment that we've been discussing. Any discussion or debate? Mayor Davis. Yeah.
Just, I put my hand up fast. So, as a father of 2 daughters and a grandfather of 6 kids, I'd like to take them to the park. Just wondering if staff can tell me because I'm a little bit concerned about the amount of green space in this development. And what do we have planned north of this in terms of what's the block plan? I'm trying to remember where's the park? Remember there's a park in that area. How big is it going to be and where is it going to be?
Through the chair, to the mayor, there's a large city, going to be a large city park proposed in the Riverwalk Phase 4. So that is north of Burkett. I believe, just looking up the distance now, we had about 1,500 feet or so from a walking distance. So we'll be within a typical walking distance of a city-owned park that would be developed over time through the other subdivisions to the north. There would be opportunities for crossing Burkett as well. We are having a condition of a PXO on Burkett for the Dyke Trail to allow for a safe passage across Burkett, knowing that the traffic along Burkett will be significantly higher than it is today, as well as municipal sidewalks leading to that park. It is not right next door, but it is within considering a walking distance away for that city park.
Yeah, okay. It's coming back to me now. I remembering that block plan. And so certainly the signalized walkway across Burkett Lane, I think would be important given the number of people that are living here. And many of them will be going north to that park. And if I recall correctly, it's a fairly large park and lots of playground amenities and whatnot.
Yeah, through the chair, it will be a decent sized park for the programming of that. That's definitely a future phase, and typically at this time our process would be the city team designs the park of the actual structures and what's included in that when the time comes.
Yeah, but even if you have a park up there, you still have kids that want to hang out in their little neighborhoods. So I'm hoping that in the final site plan design for the area that's going to have, you know, the 3 or 4 bedrooms, to look at maybe expanding some of the green space that serves those units. Am I close to my 4 minutes? Okay, so I want to talk just generally. And, you know, I understand the concern of residents about growth. Growth that's a natural order of life. And, you know, this is not communist Russia. We cannot direct landowners what they can or can't do. Like, you just can't freeze development across the city. That's not, we live in a free market economy, and you can build on your property, subject of course to zoning and regulatory requirements. And of course, we are being pushed by the province to increase the density of developments that we approve for 2 reasons. One, we also live in an area of southwestern Ontario that has some of the most productive farmland in the world. And the way you protect farmland and you also allow for growth that's occurring because Canada's growing, you increase density. Because if you're putting more units on a piece of property, it means you're using less farmland and you're expropriating less. So these are all the greater forces that are at play. And then, of course, you have the Ontario Land Tribunal, where if we turn something down, the Ontario Land Tribunal has the last word. It's an administrative court, and they've got the final word in these developments, and they're guided and governed by provincial policy. So when we have developments like this, then this is pretty typical of the kinds of developments that we're seeing in the city because of all those market forces and provincial regulations. What we can best do here is to make sure that as many concerns are addressed to make sure that it fits as well as possible and how this entire area, because this isn't just these lands, there's a whole area there, the south end of Eagle Place, that's being developed. And I'm hoping when we move to the site plan process that The proponent and staff bear in mind the concerns of the residents and the concerns expressed by counselors to make this an even better development, not only for the neighborhood, but of course, the people that be living here. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Van Tilburg.
Thank you, Chair. I got a lot of concerns about this development, the density, quality of life that'll be in it. It's changed in 2021, but that is not the proposals, the way the zoning was prior to 2021. It was more of a mixed use. It was more broad. And my problem with this is that we have an example. Quite frankly, I'm very familiar with the example because I'm probably one of the biggest champions of it, and that is the Colburn Street, the Canadian Tire development. I'll tell you, I took a lot of heat for that. How dare I push all those people into that small area and build this new style of homes that we hadn't seen before? Well, there was a number of things we had going for that development. One, amenities all around it, right next to it. 4 parks. Actually, there's 5 parks. I can't remember because those other little tiny park is just for small children. It's like mini kiddie play. But we got Devon Park, Iroquois Park, Mohawk Park, and right next to it, let alone Pauline Johnson with its amenities right behind it. You've got amenities on site. The new development there had amenities on site. And then we talk about the traffic, and people were saying, how on earth are we going to handle the traffic and the development with that much density in that area? Well, we had Colburn Street, it's a 2-lane street, and we have the Iroquois Street, which is right next to it, which feeds into it. Now, being the counselor for that area, I can tell you what my phone calls are today after the development. On a 2-lane, very well controlled, very well constructed road, it's difficult to get out. The pressure on us to put a roundabout on there or get lights up is extreme. We have a problem that we can't get lights up there now, and we used to have lights, and that we have roundabouts. So we have these developments. You may think they're similar in developments, but they're not similar in areas. They're not similar in what they do. The Colburn Street development actually provides an excellent quality of life for people with the amenities, with the abilities to go into parklands. And the other part is the accessibilities to wherever their job market is. We know that if you're down in the south of Erie Ave, you are bottlenecked in there. And we're putting in more developments that create more of that bottleneck to get to the amenities. So I don't think it's a great thing to have a bunch of families with children with very limited play area. Certainly not even on site of this area. I mean, you take a look at the size of the green space and you think, because where the development's going, and you're wondering, could this be better? Could this be more wholesome for the families? Right? I see potential to house a lot of families. And then I see a potential for counselors to deal with the fallout of a lot of families.
Thank you, Counselor Slice.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I too have a lot of concerns, but it's I think it's the world that we live in. I think the mayor kind of encapsulated that well. 5 years ago, I don't think this would get approved. In today's world, I think it would go to the OLT and get approved in a minute. So, but the concerns that I have, one of them is parking, and it was, I think, stated that it's actually creating more parking than what's required. But we all know that garages end up being storage bins and end up being rec rooms and other things that don't support parking a car. So you're going to lose 267 parking spots. You're going to lose a good portion of those to creating living space out of what was presented as a parking space. And it's no fault of the developer. That's just life. That's what's going to happen to a lot of garages. So the parking is going to become an issue. The traffic's going to become an issue. And I also think, as Councilor Van Tilburg, there's not a lot of amenity I think it was indicated that shopping is close to the downtown. That's quite a long ways from where this is. So you obviously you don't just walk to the corner store. You've got a long walk, or you've got to drive to get to what you're looking for in life to live. So I guess given the circumstance that we're in, the housing crisis that we're in, these types of development will get approved, and I'll be supporting it simply because of that. There's nothing to be gained by taking this to the OLT because it's just going to come back approved. So said that, I'll be supporting it, but it is certainly reluctantly. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I do have a few comments because as everyone knows, I do represent Ward 1, which is, so I'm no stranger to development and growth and you know, I've only ever lived in Ward 1 my whole life, particularly in the new build area. And I just moved to the newest of new area in Ward 1. And I'm kind of getting a very different perspective on how this executes and what it looks like going from a plan to having a whole bunch of families in day-to-day life. I see how the parking requirements impact the day-to-day life of a bunch of families. And I see what happens when the children in the neighborhood don't have somewhere to go play or appropriate amenity space. And you know, when kids don't have an appropriate place to go play, they find something to do. I assure you, they will find something to do. They're in the stormwater ponds, they're playing on dirt piles. It becomes very unsafe. But they're kids and they want to be outside playing, and we should be encouraging that. But there is something to be said about you know, prioritizing the end user's experience over how many townhomes can we fit into a parcel of land, because there are issues. And I know some of this we can't do anything about. The provincial government has come in and say we can't mandate more than X amount of parking spaces per unit, but there is repercussion for what that looks like at the end of the day. And it turns, just last night, I watched a child jump off a bike as someone whipped around the corner, and the kid jumped off the bike and the bike was hit by the car because the kid had nowhere to play other than the street. And we have a homeowner who's frustrated because there's 4 available parking spots in an area. So we need to be aware, and we need to be making these decisions now, because 5-10 years from now, this is going to be somebody else's problem. So in saying that, I don't see any amendments coming forward on the floor, but that's all I have to say. And it's going to be a message that I'm going to be driving home to developers over and over again, that there is an end user to this, and we need to be making sure that it's appropriate for families to actually live their day-to-day life. And that's my speaking opportunity. Seeing no further speakers, we will call the vote.
Item 4.1 carries on a recorded vote of 3-1. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sokoli, and Councillor Sless. Those opposed, Councillor Van Tilburg.
All right, we've already dealt with the other items. We did vote on that, right? Yeah, perfect. All right, we have no resolutions, no notice of motions, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.